everyone. Thank you, Chairman, for the introduction. So, I'm very happy to be here to be moderating this session today. This is going to be a very interesting topic, especially for those in the cybersecurity sector and in the data center security. So, before we dive into the actual questions, I would like to introduce a bit on what we are going to be talking about today. And so Dmitriy, a technology executive with over 25 years of experience in the telecom and ICT industries across Europe, Africa, and Asia. He successfully led the launch of Tier 3 and Tier 4 data centers in Belarus and Malaysia, setting new benchmarks for operational reliability. So he has also overseen the design and certification of PCI DSS and ISO 27001 compliant cloud and infrastructure environments, and continues to apply these best practices in his current role as the CTO at irix. And followed by Ruban. Ruban is a cybersecurity risk management leader with over 22 years of experience across technology and financial sectors. Formerly head of infrastructure, application security, and cyber risk at Right Bank, he managed technology, cloud, and cyber risk to safeguard the organization from emerging threats. Previously, as part of the founding team at DNB, Malaysia's initiative, Ruban served as the nation's first 5G security architect, leading the design and implementation of enterprise security architecture. And moving on to Suraya. Technologist Suraya is a senior architect at CyberSecurity Malaysia under the Ministry of Digital, specializing in risk intelligence, threat research, and OSINT. She is a professional technologist in cybersecurity. She contributes to AI security governance through her roles with NAIO, MTSFB, and NBAIC. Suraya actively works with government, academia, and industry to enhance cyber resilience. That is a super long introduction. Mine is going to be super short. I am a membership director at Cloud Security Alliance. I am also a third-party risk manager at a advertising agency, and I also have my, I would say, startup company, which is called Cyvision Consulting. I major in risk management and cybersecurity. So that's about the introduction of all of us. So we will dive right into the questions. For Dmitriy first, I'm going to ask everyone the same question first, right? To all panelists. We often hear cybersecurity and cyber resilience used interchangeably. Can you briefly share what does true cyber resilience mean when it comes to data centers? So let's start with Dmitriy first.
Hello, everyone. My voice might be a bit shaken because it's freezing cold here. So I'm not resilient to the air conditioning. What resilience or cyber resilience means to me, I would put it in 2 points. Point number one, this is continuity of service. The continuity of service is something the data center, if we're talking about the data center, is very important, not for the data center as such, but also for the customers this data center is hosting. And as our partner NexusGuard, who is providing DDoS protection services for us and for our customers, they often highlight that resilience means that we're able to keep services running even when mitigation starts and continues. And the second is readiness to respond and learn. Some other colleagues from Stormwall, they shows that defense is very important task of any company, and resilience means having the playbooks, practices implemented, the teams which are trained, and trusted partners are ready to react in order to mitigate all those. So these 2 points, continuity of service and readiness to respond.
Awesome. Continuity of service and readiness to respond. So what, Ruben, do you have a point that is different from that, or do you agree with Dmitriy?
Yeah, thanks, Dmitry. To chime in, right, from a banking and FSI, from a payment gateway, what's critical is that first, cybersecurity and cyber resilience is a subset of one another, right? It's intertwined. When I say that, for example, cybersecurity analogy in a data center is like building controls. It could be physical security controls, your perimeter fencing, your CCTV, and then your security checkpoints, and then you go to another layer with the racks. You've got physical racks, and the racks are locked. Then you have CCTVs on the floor, the rack floors. And then on your hardware and software layer, you have security controls like endpoint detection. And then on the perimeter layer of your network, you have network security controls, right? So it's more of like putting together detective and preventive controls. But then this prevents cyber attack from happening. But then what if there's a cyber attack and a cyber threat actor has perpetrated and has come into your data center? Then the question is whether your data center is resilient enough to provide services, right, to the vendor that's, just say for a customer that's hosted in a data center. In a context that if there's a ransomware attack, lateral movement, are you able to isolate and contain that in a cyber incident and make sure your services are up and running, like what Dmitry mentioned in terms of uptime. So the conversation pivots from building layers of security blocks and being how resilient are you to recover, and then we talk about people, process, technology. We talk about incident response plan, whether you have a playbook to basically recover from that cyber incident. So that's my context. So yeah.
Yes, okay. So we are focusing on when it happens, not if it happens, right? Suraya?
Assalamualaikum, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani yang berbahagia Datuk-Datuk Datin-Datin, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I just would like to say thank you to my CDC for inviting me to share about securing data center. It's actually a very significant topic, but it's also important for us to understand the context of where we are now. Okay, especially if we look at the data reporter statistics, it shows that our world right now is moving into an interconnected cyberspace. We have a population in the world about 8.06 billion, and about 5.56 billion is using the internet. In Malaysia, we have over 97% of population over 33 million who is using the internet. This indicates that more and more are connected into our cyberspace. I believe if I also ask among our school children, everyone has devices connected to the internet. That's what I call Internet of People, which is people connected to the internet. So I think it's actually Dmitry and Ruban already summarized what's my points also. Because in an organization and also for us that having data centers, it is important for us to establish a comprehensive cybersecurity governance model, meaning to say that you have to have your risk assessment, policies, guidelines, defense in-depth approach. This is talking about the, like Ruben and Dmitry mentioned, about the multi-layered defense. It's no longer just the perimeter defense. You have to have layers of defense. Effective, preventive, proactive monitoring, response and recovery capabilities. It's no longer just about for us to responsive to the incident. We need to strengthen the security controls. That's why, for example, the CyberSecurity Act right now, the Act 854, I think all of us already acknowledge that. It focuses on that. It's about audit and risk assessment is very important. Security controls must be there as a way of minimizing the possibilities of threat, which is we doing the VAPT, the pen testing. It's all about the resiliency. And the other thing just now, like people also talking about zero trust approach. This is what we like to highlight in the resilience part. Zero trust is about verifying every steps that we're going to do. We have to assume breach, meaning that because no one is 100% perfect in security, when we're talking about an incident plan, it is very important if a breach happens, how do we handle it? So we have to minimize the impact of the incidents because of the attack. This is what we call cyber resiliency, which means the ability for us to bounce back very quickly despite being in an attack.
So all three, thank you, Suraya, and all three of the panelists, right? They have already highlighted the main points of what resilience is for you to prepare when it happens, not if it happens, and also all the controls, all the documentation should be in place, and including risk assessments and so on. So now we're going to go into the 3 major topics that we will be discussing today. So Dmitry, turning to you, given the rising and constantly changing threat landscape, how should Malaysian data centers adapt their security posture to address security threats, such as the 78% surge of ransomware that we saw last year, and also the critical infrastructure breach that happened this year that was quite serious? So how do we avoid that? How do we address those security threats?
I'll probably start with a few steps back, just sharing what we see is going on right now. We all hear about AI all the time, and it's of course very nice to have, and it's helping us in many ways, and perhaps it's helping not only good people but also bad people as well. At the same time, AI is not something attackers using 100% right now, and the attacks are evolving, but not with help of AI at the moment. We will see maybe in 1 year that the attacks will be more and more sophisticated, and more AI tools will be used. But what we see right now as a trend, that the vectors of attacks are changing, and the attackers are quite practical people, and what they trying to use at the moment is to leverage on cheap devices with bad firmware, with a lot of vulnerabilities there. And it's just enough to infect a lot of devices, get rid of expensive botnets, and perform long-lasting attacks with a very heavy traffic towards the data centers or the customers. And they attacking data centers not just because of the data centers, but because of those who are hosted in these data centers. So this is a real problem right now. Back to AI. Attackers are using these tools right now to perform constant monitoring of the defenses we as a provider using or customers using to protect themselves, and it is becoming very challenging for us to be protected. And what data centers could do? Number one, I think this is to keep proactively live discussion between the industry players and see how we can share our knowledge, our experience, and how we can fight together with those threats. Second, if we look at the data centers, normally that could be perceived as just a facility, huge hangar with a lot of chillers, generators, etc. And all those facilities having the L1 support or NOC, but perhaps data centers should evolve and to have a kind of a hybrid network operation center and security operation center in one, and have NSOC, which will help to respond to those problems or alerts in the data center, combining facility and infrastructure and IT, and to respond to security threats. That, I think, what data centers should do, irrespectively of their size, would be they very small or very huge.
Thank you so much for that point, Dmitry. Those are really critical technical controls plus innovative, right? Not everybody is applying what he just said. But to move on to the next question, I would also like to say that data centers do not operate in isolation. Data centers requires multiple vendors to operate. That brings me to the next question to Ruban. So given that data centers rely on perhaps even hundreds of vendors, so how do we manage and continuously verify that our critical suppliers maintain strong security posture?
Okay, in the context from banking and FSI, right? So we deal with a lot of from banks like digital banks. We deal with cloud hyperscalers. When we deal with cloud hyperscalers, then we talk about infrastructure services, platform services, or software services. So I believe that everybody is proponent of using SaaS, right? And in the context where in the past when I was building a digital bank, we are proponent of using a lot of SaaS vendors. So we do a lot of third-party risk assessments. And then, so it's basically a questionnaire, paper-based exercise where we try to get responses from the SaaS vendors or IaaS vendors, what kind of controls they have in terms of, if you talk about, customer PII data hosted in infrastructure, what kind of guardrails they're putting, compensating control to encrypt data rest, data and transmission example, right? And we go through that due diligence based on, if you talk about cyber, we talk about confidentiality, integrity, availability of the services rendered by the service provider. That's one, we kind of do a very thorough due diligence. It's a very paper-driven exercise, and we try to get a response. And then, based on that responses that we get from the third-party vendor or four-party, then we basically do a risk assessment, and then we quantify a risk based on likelihood and impact, and what's risk quantification for that vendor, right? And obviously, we want to enable the business to pivot fast and come up with minimal viable products. We should take a cautionary approach, making sure we are able to translate the risk to the business to understand what kind of risk they're taking. If they're hosting on a service provider that doesn't have cybersecurity control, and there's data leakage, then what happens next, right? So that's one first thing is due diligence. Second is we basically do an assurance. Most of the data center providers they will basically have an ISO or a SOC 2 report, and we really want to verify whether they've done their BCPDR, whether they have an incident response playbook or cyber incident response playbook. They've tested their BCPDR on the service that they're rendering to us, and make sure that we vet the assurance process. And trajectory, the next step is basically we verify whether they've done that. So that's where, from a customer perspective, if you're hosted on a data center, you have to have primary in DR. And if it's a critical services, you've got to do your BCP DR. And if it's a critical app, you've got to define your RTO, RPO. And if then you got to do tabletop cyber drill exercise to stress test and make sure that if there's a ransomware attack, you are able to respond and recover within the guaranteed SLA. And the SLA is also tied to the service provider, and basically we have an SLA to the customer. That's holistically the process. Yeah.
Yeah, so ideally what Ruben said is what every company should be doing, but I think the loophole is where it's not being done frequently or annually based on their policies. And one more thing about the third-party risk assessment and so on, when you do it, for example, on a co-location service, like as a customer, I would not want to put my service just anywhere. So I would like to know whether this data center, this co-location service itself, like what irix is doing, is secure in terms of physical security. So I think there was another session, a few sessions that already spoke about physical security, which is also important, right? And risk assessments itself, it shouldn't be like a questionnaire basis. It should be tailored for the vendor itself. So it's not always ISO 27001 or SOC 2. Anybody can give it to us. We are looking specifically into what the service is giving us and what it should be having in terms of the security controls. So it brings me to the next question to Suraya. All this is not possible if we do not have competent people in place to actually apply these controls and monitor them from time to time. So what are the Suraya, for you, what innovative approaches are working to build capable security teams and create a proactive security culture within data center operations?
All right, okay. Before that, I would like to share the case for the temporary national data center in Surabaya. So this case I quoted outside of Malaysia, is in Indonesia, was hit by a ransomware variant called Lockbit 3.0 Brain Cipher. This attack actually disrupted about 282 public services in Indonesia, including the immigration, airport operations, and online student registration. So when the incident happens, there's no plan. Luckily, they give the password for whatever reason, their point of views of the hacker. But imagine if they keep holding, if the hacker or threat actor actually keep holding the password from giving it to the Indonesian government. I'm talking about if we go back to an organization, if we don't prepare ourselves on this, we have to have at least a backup if ransomware touchwood happens to our organization. Even though for this kind of things, especially the ransomware, I think it's one of the top cyber incidents, not only in Malaysia, but also in the region. That's why we have to be wary of the technology evolution. AI, for example, we have to understand that when we talk about AI, we can use for security. That's why we call AI for cybersecurity. We have to have also cybersecurity for AI, meaning for AI, we have to protect the model, data, etc. That's why we call AI for cybersecurity and cybersecurity for AI. We use AI to ensure that we can be better. As mentioned by the World Economic Forum, the attackers actually benefited most from AI, which is 55 to 58% compared to the defenders. The defenders only benefited about 7 to 8%. That's why we must, at our SOC or at our SOC analysts, we must make use of the AI. And at the same time, cybersecurity for AI, we need to also protect our model. And I just would like to share for our SOC in Cybersecurity Malaysia, what we are doing, because we know that for SOC, all the thousands of alarms or alerts coming every day in our SOC. So what we are doing is that we're using the agent AI to automate the process for the level 1 and level 2 for the SOC analysts. So this is actually can minimize the resources for our SOC analysts and for them to concentrate at the level 3 and to help detect the false positives or false negative, true positive for us to handle at hand. So another areas that we are looking very seriously right now is about quantum computing. Basically, if you know about quantum, is very super computing power. It's a computing power that it can crack your password, your Maybank to you, your CIMB password easily. So you imagine now how if we cannot secure all of our password, if it can easily be cracked with this quantum technology. People say that by 2030, we will be mature for quantum computing. So that's now we are looking to these two areas, which is the post-quantum cryptography that can circumvent this algorithm, the classical encryption, and secondly is also the quantum key distribution. For Malaysia, currently we are focusing on the post-quantum. In fact, there certain task force has been set up by the government, academician, and various industry players. So these are all the new threats. Imagine we have to manage this. Despite all these emerging technologies, the fundamental technologies is the security. And we have to learn and we have to know. We have to keep learning so that, because if we keep learning, it will make us look younger and we have more black hair. Okay.
Okay, so I think she came up with innovative answers. So usually we hear awareness and training, and we just make sure they go through the onboarding session with proper interviews, and then we hire them, and then we do a monthly or a quarterly training on them, and it's very traditional way. So what she says is what is happening right now in this world. So we have pretty much covered 3 main topics, and we're going to close it. But before that, I would like to ask each of you, what is one actionable step or the audience here can take in the next 30 days that will provide meaningful risk reduction for their data center operations? It has to be practical and something that they can apply in the next 30 days. I'll start with Dmitry.
Just one. Okay. I will start with, you cannot protect what you cannot see. So from my side, my advice on the practical step is to review your infrastructure. You might be surprised how many resources you have just forgotten or running without any purpose. So these are maybe one of the primary targets for the attackers to your infrastructure. So review that and remove what you don't need, and you will be more secured.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ruben, do you have any?
Yeah, okay, to chime in and what Dmitry has said, okay, I'll give you a banking context, right? So BNM has come up with exposure draft of RMIT, Risk Management Information Technology, and they're going to release from an exposure draft to a major release, and one of the component there is talking about software bill of material. Now, it states that you've got to basically have a registry of all your hardware, software component. Why is that? I'm sure that everyone is familiar with what DevOps is and continuous integration, continuous development on the data center infrastructure. And then you have dependency on using open source or third-party softwares, right? And most of the time, these are not documented, so you don't have a set registry. And if there's a vulnerability there, this will become like a third-party attack vector, third-party or fault vector, because you're using open source and this is not documented. An example of what happened using Java Log4j, right? There was servers that hosted web-facing that customers were not aware, and threat actors were able to scan and exploit that vulnerability and do a remote code execution and then come into your infrastructure. Yeah, so asset visibility is paramount. Then second is hygiene control. What's your SLA? How fast you're remediating and patching all your vulnerabilities, right? The third is have a vulnerability management program to scan and remediate your highs and medium, low vulnerabilities. And I think fourth is technology in terms of detection and prevention, detection, have logging, right? So you have a knock. Most of the time you have a knock in a data center. But then I think that what Suraya mentioned from a SOC context, have a SIEM, enable logging for your asset hardware, have an audit trail, have a playbook, able to respond to an incident, automate that, and so that your SOC analysts can focus on triaging the event, let automated playbooks run the level 1 process. Yeah, that's my thought.
It's definitely more than one, but I think whatever that he said is all important, right? And Suraya, what do you think? One actionable step.
I think just to add from Dmitry and Ruben, most important thing, we don't forget about people. We have to learn from the Indonesia ransomware case. It has to start at the highest level, the C level, from the board, and make it as a culture. Everyone has to be involved, not just IT department. That's another perception that we need to correct. I think well done to my CDC and every one of you who came here, because all of you have started this initiative to make it as a culture. Okay, that's all.
Okay, so I think she pretty much already closed for me. Thank you all for coming and listening to us.